What if enterprise transformation wasn't about adopting AI faster, but about learning how to think differently before you build anything at all? Today, I want to share lessons from our recent Build with Shreya podcast with Pankaj Rai, Group Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Aditya Birla Group. Pankaj has spent decades across global banks, conglomerates, and data driven organizations, from GE and Wells Fargo to leading AI driven transformation across one of India's largest enterprises. But if there is one idea that runs through his entire journey, it is this: transformation is not about speed, it is about endurance. One of the most striking moments in the conversation comes when Pankaj says something that goes against almost every enterprise instinct.
So what we are now recommending when we are engaging with new businesses today is to say we will not start with the project, which is what we started earlier because we didn't know any better. So we went to anyone and said, "You have a problem, we'll solve it." So we started at the bottom. Okay. Now we are stopping at the top.
In the early years, the analytics team did what most central teams do. They went to businesses and said, "You have a problem, we'll solve it using data." And they did. They solved logistics problems, pricing problems, manufacturing inefficiencies, and operational issues across the group. But over time, they realized something uncomfortable. Solving problems was not transforming the enterprise, it was creating dependency. That realization forced a pause. And in that pause, the team reflected on what they were actually doing. Out of that reflection came what Pankaj later formalized as the 3W framework.
And those principles were three layers of saying you have ways of thinking, ways of working, and ways of doing. So we said this is a 3W framework. Ways of thinking, how do you think about strategy? Ways of working, how do you scale it? And ways of doing, which is the technology. In these three layers, we had some boxes. So imagine a framework. Ways of doing is data science, data engineering, data architecture, all the technical part. This is what we had hired our people for. But what we realized was just doing this is not good enough. In order to drive long-term change, you need the other two components also.
Right.
So the ways of working had talent capability, which is you coach other people to do these things. So training and coaching and org design and hiring became a topic. On the ways of thinking part, we had strategy, and we had innovation and research and AI maturity.
That is why today, instead of starting at the bottom with projects, the team starts at the top with business strategy, with intent, with context. Another recurring theme in the conversation is that most transformation failures are misdiagnosed. We blame the technology, we blame immature models, we blame tools that didn't scale. But Pankaj argues that this misses the real issue.
They start off as being technology projects, but they are all really change management or mindset projects. And especially with the newer technology, I think the biggest thing that we need to work upon is the mindset. So our 3W framework is really that the why and the how, or the ways of thinking or the ways of working. If you think about any modern company, the ways of thinking is real and agile way of thinking, saying what's the customer telling us, what's the market telling us, how are we agile. Way of working is every 2 weeks launching feature. So I think thinking very broadly, thinking innovatively, iterating and innovating are totally new things which are not very familiar to legacy businesses, where things happen at a very, very slow pace.
Legacy organizations operate in linear ways: long planning cycles, fixed hierarchies, slow feedback loops. But modern AI systems assume agility, iteration, continuous learning. If an organization is not agile in how it thinks and works, it simply cannot consume agile technology. When Pankaj joined Aditya Birla in 2021, the analytics team itself was fragile. COVID had hit, people hadn't met each other, leadership had changed, the team was new, and its role was not well understood. The first phase was survival, proving usefulness. So the team went out and solved problems wherever they could. That was phase one. But once usefulness was established, they made a deliberate shift. Instead of just solving problems, they began teaching businesses how to solve problems themselves.
We are a central team, we should be doing something better than that. So we said, actually, what we have solved for them, we should teach them so that now they can do it on their own. Because then you are acting as a coach and building capability. So we started sort of coaching them. We created some technical components which were productized, which could be given to them. They can be reused by others. So slowly from doing point problems using data science, we started to think more about platforms and reusable components to say, you can train them, and you can give it to them, and other people can also use them.
From problem solvers to enablers, from enablers to capability builders, eventually to an internal R&D function. This distinction matters. If a central team solves everything, the organization never learns. But if it builds capability, transformation compounds. One of the most practical insights from the podcast is how Pankaj thinks about scale in a conglomerate. Aditya Birla is not one business, it is many businesses, each with different constraints, cultures, and rhythms. Cement is not aluminum, manufacturing is not financial services. So instead of forcing standardization, the team focused on reusability.
In our aluminum business, we melt aluminum over a 36-hour process, and the idea that there were all these sensors, you could collect the sensor data and predict that this temperature can vary beyond the norm and prevent that from going, which will improve the quality and the energy conservation. Now, this idea that you can create a digital twin of that equipment became a very common thing for any other equipment as well. So while it served that purpose, so I think we are learning few new things. Digital twin was an idea. Now, having done one or two projects, it has become a norm that we are trying to do many more things. Similarly, dynamic pricing in a commodity business like ours was not something which was very well known, but it is being done in some businesses. So I think we are still learning, and we are going to hopefully impact every business metric possible.
This was not about copying solutions blindly. It was about creating portable intelligence, learning that could move across the group without erasing local context. One of the biggest blockers to AI adoption in traditional enterprises is funding. CFOs don't like failure, and experimentation, by definition, includes failure. Instead of fighting this reality, Pankaj's team redesigned the funding model.
We have now created a new model to say, let's say a strategic priority for this year is energy cost reduction. Let's assume energy cost reduction is a 100 crore rupees opportunity. So they will agree with the CFO that this is an opportunity, we all agree. We will spend 2 crores on this opportunity to try something new, maybe with 10 startups at, let's say, 20 lakhs each. So you're doing 10 experiments, maybe 6 of them will fail, 4 may succeed, and they will give you the benefit. So it's almost like a VC model, not very difficult to imagine, but it was not something which was being done in a traditional company. So the CFO said, fine, I'm not going to check each project of yours. Take the 2 crore, do 10 experiments. As long as you can generate whatever benefit, I'm fine. So I'm saying it's a simple example, but now when it was done in one place, we said, it's working in that team. That CFO has signed off. Why don't all of you copy it? So basically, we are trying to create examples in one place and then reusing it elsewhere, not just the technology, but good practices.
This wasn't a technology innovation, it was an operating model innovation, and it mattered more than any single algorithm. When speaking about deep tech more broadly, Pankaj didn't sugarcoat it. Deep tech takes time. It requires patient investors, serious R&D, and staying power. India has immense talent, but historically not enough patience. That is beginning to change. More founders are willing to build despite long gestation periods. More investors are backing ideas that won't pay off immediately. The ecosystem is slowly learning that endurance matters more than speed. So, if you're building transformation today, ask yourself, are you starting with tools or with thinking? Are you solving problems or building capability? And are you willing to stay standing long enough for learning to compound? Because in the end, the organizations that win won't be the fastest. They'll be the ones still here when transformation stops being a buzzword and becomes muscle memory. Subscribe for more real world builder stories and share which lesson from this episode stayed with you the longest.